You got that, Leon? You're doing okay. What's up, Grace?
She's got good ears.
Hey there. Well, she's got a dirty mind too, so.
No. That might be a little bit, right?
Been around the block a few times. I hear you. What's going on? All right. Guess we can start, right? Wait, we don't need Jason. No? All right. Well said, Val. Okay, well, the September 11th meeting of the Conservation Commission will stand and salute the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should we go to anybody here for land trust, or should we just go to
Yeah,
here?
Steve's here. He's right there.
All right, so we'll do the Land Conservation Trust, conservation restrictions. Conservation restriction. How are you, Frank?
Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Sloan here this evening representing the Westport Land Conservation Trust. He is before us to request a signature for 2 conservation restrictions. One of them is the St. Vincent de Paul camp, which has been recently, buildings have been recently demolished, and the site's been brought up to conditions the Land Trust has been working towards. The second parcel is James Woods Field area, located here just just kitty corner from the town hall on Main Road. That conservation restriction is for that 2-acre or 1.5-acre lot area. So, Steve?
Great, thanks a lot. And just to be clear, each of these restrictions is in the final stages of the drafting, so they've had a preliminary town council review. It's gone to the state, feedback from the state, and in the case of the Wood CR, it's also gone to the state's legal review, which is their second stage. So what I was hoping for this evening would be a vote to approve the restrictions subject to any final adjustments that State's Council or Town's Council makes to it, and then with the concept that those would be signed at a later point once the document was finalized and the Board of Selectmen had approved and so forth. But it would be helpful to get you to sign the municipal certification for each restriction, which is essentially a document that is part of the application package, and it certifies that there's a public benefit to the restriction should it be executed. And so I have those here. Essentially what we do on the municipal certifications is we kind of paste in the conservation values that are in each document and put them on that sheet. This is not something that ends up in the registry, it's something that simply goes into the state for their folders on each application as they come forward. That being said, I'd be happy to spend a little time on each one if that's useful. The St. Vincent de Paul property, you'll recall we did put a restriction on the 59.7 acres of woodlands around the core of the property, and so this is the restriction on the second piece, what we've been referring to kind of as the camp core, about 21.3 acres in the middle there. So this is where all the structures are, the lawn is, and so this is a restriction that's different from the prior one. The prior one was more restrictive. This is meant to be more flexible since we are, the concept is of community park. There's a number of structures there that we are going to keep, including the basketball gymnasium, and so we're allowing for all those continued uses. We're anticipating all of the parking that's needed, the access, the utilities, and all those things. So it's a little more detailed in that regard.
Is there an outdoor pool on this?
It was, that's been filled in, so yeah, that was in for repair, so we just wanted to get rid of that faster. That's one of the many structures that have been taken down just in the last couple of weeks. And a lot of those areas will been loaned over and will be reseeded, and so that will be just a little bit long. Are there any questions on that one?
Just mention that there are two building envelopes that are restricted
So-
within that 21 acres.
Yeah, if you look at the Exhibit C, you'll just see kind of two shaded areas. So this is essentially what I would refer to as a placeholder exhibit. So we have monumented in the field, and there's a survey underway which will establish the actual precise location of each building envelope. But the idea is the gymnasium envelope is around the large gym structure, the steel frame structure, and then the maintenance shed that's next to that. So those we wanted to allow for additional uses within that area. For example, you might need handicap parking closer to the gym, depending on what happens, that kind of thing. And then the envelope closer to the road, historic house envelope, is where the large house in the property is, and that will be restored, renovated. We're raising funds now to do that, to create some office space for the land trust, and see what else can fit in there.
Would the uses allow for, concerts or, I don't know, just large public gatherings like that?
Yeah, so we've tried to kind of anticipate how community parks are used, and the Section 2 essentially tries to create a kind of a blanket, permission for uses of the community park, and it's hard to anticipate all of those, but
Right.
We talk about the infrastructure there. I think we will have a parking area, so we can certainly accommodate the parking that's needed for a concert like that. We reference specifically things like farmers markets and so forth. It's funny, we didn't talk about outdoor concerts. It's a good question, though.
I know it was discussed with Ross. I know that a few people came forward with asking for maybe a central gazebo that could hold, jazz or orchestra events, and even as far as the parade making their final landing. Instead of going up Main Road, they could go up Adamsville and head to the Vincent's area.
Yeah, I'm looking at B5, and we really, because it's hard to anticipate all of the future
Yeah.
uses, we really there, I think, more than anywhere, tried to say, look, we would need the permission of the grantee, which in this case would be the commission, if we felt like there was a structural need to support some of the community park uses that hadn't been anticipated. So that's really where it's a little more open-ended than we would typically see in restriction.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
But I think we felt like, we were essentially allowing us to ask and allowing the town to kind of be the judge of whether that request was reasonable given the uses. And that was a fair kind of place to put it, because the community uses would be largely the residents of Westport, and so, we could kind of have a good sense, and the town would have a good sense whether that was a need that was serving that community.
Yeah, I ask because sometimes agreements, will have kind of, including but not limited to kind of language, which gives you a little more flexibility, but this seems to be, doesn't have that, so it's like, if it's not in here, you can't, well, I'm not acting as a lawyer in this, because but
Right.
I'm just, that's why I was asking, because it didn't jump out at me, and I just thought, well, did you decide not to do that, or,
Yeah.
anyway, well, maybe it's something to keep talking about.
It's a good question. I think what I'd be inclined to do, since we're again just still in the legal back and forth, I think I'll throw that question out to the state's reviewer and see how they're interpreting it now, and we can make an adjustment if needed, because I think that's something we would certainly not want to prohibit.
Right, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so tonight you're just looking for the municipal certification, correct?
Yes, and if you're comfortable approving the restrictions subject to the additional legal changes, then that would be great. If you'd rather wait for another meeting, then I think we could.
If they feel comfortable, that's fine with me. And we have a motion?
So I move that we approve and adopt the conservation restriction for the St. Vincent de Paul property Phase 2, subject to any changes resulting from further legal analysis or state requirements.
Second.
Did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said reason, okay. All right, and that includes the municipal certification, correct? Approval of that, okay.
Right.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And the next one is pretty easy, it's only 2 acres or 2.5 acres, so.
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller, fewer buildings. And so on this one, we did want to allow the agricultural uses that are there, but also anticipate that, it may be appropriate to at least build into the document the ability to have a small viewing area so that if someone wanted to kind of enjoy the view and the cattle that are there or will be there, there would be a place kind of outside of the road right away to do that. I don't anticipate that we are going to do this in the near term, but we felt that it was hard to kind of think about an appropriate means of providing some meaningful public access here that wouldn't interfere with the continued agricultural use, given the land there. So that's what we kind of set it on. You can kind of see the area we're thinking about in Exhibit B. But the basic concept of this restriction is to simply preserve the property as part of the fabric of the center of town. And, I think obviously Westport, the agricultural landscape is a significant part of the community character, and so this field in center town kind of echoes and mirrors that part of the town, and its influence and its future. So that's the primary goal there.
All right, so you have the same thing, municipal certification approval and approval of the restrictions pending any changes from the town council or state attorneys?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
I so move.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. It's unanimous, okay.
Thank you. I could leave these for later tonight, or
Do you have more?
We just signed some.
Oh, you just signed it?
Yeah, we have some, yeah. Do you, I think so, this one. Do you need these, do you want the municipal certifications tonight, or you want us to hold on to everything?
You can, whatever's easiest for you guys. I can pick those up from Chris later in the week, or so.
If you want them right now, you can have them. We'll make it easy for you, or you
Yeah,
plan on coming
sure.
down.
No, that'd be great.
Why don't we just slide those out, Mr. Chairman, and I believe he is... The second one, Mr. Chairman?
They're still signing
Oh,
it.
it's still signed.
Yeah. Okay, so next we have Laura Hadley, enforcement order. The next discussion. Thank you. You can grab that one from down the end of the table here. Good evening, how are you?
Oh, I think we're just going to stick the picture.
Oh, you start this off, Chris.
No, all right. Mr. Chairman, this is Laura Hadley. Commission issued an enforcement order for activity of planting floating plants on mechanisms within the Ball Pond. The commission felt that
Thank you.
these plants could be detrimental to the pond because they're potentially not common to the Ball Pond. And later we have determined by way of Mrs. Hadley informing us what the plants are, that one species actually is not even allowed in the United States or Massachusetts. The commission issued the enforcement order. I removed the floating mechanisms. They were brought to the highway department, and Mrs. Hadley retrieved some of that items. Apparently at that time of leaving the items there, either the highway department threw the remaining things into the dumpster, But needless to say, some of it, I think, was partially damaged in that process. With that said, I have been in correspondence with the DEP, with Jim Straub from DCR's Lake and Pond manager for the state. I've been in contact with the state environmental police, trying to see what mechanism should be done in the process. Long story short, invasive species are a big thing in the state, and not knowing what plants are, it's sometimes more advisable to remove them than necessarily ask to what they are. We currently have many species of invasive invaders that colonize ponds and can be very detrimental to the ponds. These species that Mrs. Hadley is utilizing are from Asia. They're not found in the United States. So I think there is some concern for those species. And they're not native, so that's something else that's a concern. We are here this evening to allow her some response. She has provided us response in emails that I forwarded to all the members, as well as a recent response from Mark Bartel from Mass DEP, informing Mrs. Hadley that this application, this process actually would require a permit through a notice of intent filing to be brought before the commission under an ecological restoration project, which is their new filing within the state for these types of activities. I'm not saying that the commission would approve this type of activity. I'm just stating that the process requires a notice of intent application. She has mentioned that she would like to continue to do this activity. She has had some collaboration with UMass professors, which I found it strange that they didn't at least advise her that permits were required. And she, in her argument, did present that she felt she was exempt from the regulations, but the criteria that she actually cited was for buffer zone activities, not for actual activities in a resource area. So given that, I guess I allow Laura to speak, but I would express to the commission that we should be cautious with activity that does utilize plants that are native to Massachusetts, and sometimes a pond of such size is not the best location for such experiments. I think this is more something that should be done on a smaller scale and maybe a confined environment where you can regulate and control loss of those species, or however that may be taken from an animal, may remove them and drag them off into the wild that allow them to colonize. She did, however, mention that these species are not tolerable to winter conditions, which is true. They're a tropic type species, so it's not likely that they could survive a winter, but it's still something that, again, is a species that's not found in these particular areas, so we should be concerned with that. So without that, Mr. Chairman, I'll allow her to.
Greetings. My name is Laura Hadley. I'm here on behalf of the Ball Pond Association, members, directors, officers, and myself. We've been working since way more than 10 years. The nonprofit we formed in 2009, and we've been trying to figure out how to clean the pond, how to get clean water without messing with our neighbors' farming operations. I like cheese, and I think we can have cheese and clean water. I really believe that. And it turns out that the work that we've been doing is working. So we're focused on one particular species, sunshine butterbird. It's been approved by the USDA for use for phytoremediation purposes. And here's a copy of it that you can take a look at. It was included in the link with a brief description of the project that we're working on. In 2009, the reason we formed the nonprofit is because this is what the pond looked like. It was completely green. The whole thing, like pea soup, completely green. After a month of testing with this particular type of species, which has been used all over the world, explicitly for phytoremediation purposes, particularly in Hawaii, it was recently approved after being quarantined for several years, and they're using it all over the place to clean excess nutrients out of their water. So this is after a month of testing, the day after the enforcement order was issued. It's actually working. It actually is working. It's really exciting. We shifted to an alpha phase test at a farm, as I mentioned. We're trying to help us taking care of us. We don't want to mess with our neighbors. They have cows, excess nutrients. The issue is the harmful algae blooms that make my dog get sick, that inhibit swimming, that, Watapa's, last I checked, Watapa and Saudi are both borderline coast, and we don't yet have a fix. So we're trying to figure out a solution so we can get clean water. So in just 4 days of the alpha testing on an adjacent farm in Rhode Island, that was the result. I mean, it looks like there were chemicals put in there, but there weren't. This particular type of species, sunshine vetiver, has been proven in hundreds of pilot studies around the world. It has not been tested in this environment, so we are trying to figure out a way to move forward with cleaning water. Initially, I'm an attorney. My reading of the regulations, I didn't think that we needed a permit. And at the end of the day, what's done is done. We want to focus on cleaning water and figure out the best way forward to enable us to do that.
So I think you really need to do is I'm glad you came in, I appreciate that. You need to file a permit, and then the state's going to take a look at it as well as Chris, and they'll go over the regulations.
Okay, so have you ever done any of the permitting on this type of a project before?
Negative, no. I think it's a new permit, you said, Chris?
Well, it's under the ecological restoration portion, which is new to the state, so there is a separate appendix that they require when you file that application.
Okay, it looks
Just
like
asking.
there were a couple other potential permit categories that it could fit under. After our email exchanges, not sure if you would prefer a test plan permit so we can have it under that structure, an emergency permit. Basically, we have the growing season to test it. We put the float in that has the plants affixed to it. They take up the nutrients that are dissolved in the water, and then get bigger, and then we extract them and measure the nutrient content. So we can measure the efficacy and the nutrient uptake rate by doing scientific testing of the biomass. So essentially it's part lab tests and part field deployment for a short period of time. We have about another month until it gets too cold for them to survive. And so we're trying to figure out how we can get this moving forward and how we can get clean water. But at the end of the day, I think clean water and healthy ecosystems are our common goal.
Oh, I agree. I just thought there is a process, like everything comes in, they have to follow. And honestly, we've never done a project like this, so I'm not familiar with this. So I have to defer to Chris on this, or discussion with the state. That's not something that I think they issued a permit on.
What's that?
So is there any emergency permit? There's nothing like that.
This is an emergency activity.
Okay.
Did you consider it an emergency activity when executing the order? I guess I'm just trying to understand how it was issued. And the first I heard about it was on the night after everything had been removed. I would have been happy to explain, what we were working on and the details of it. He called them, and like I said, our goal is clean water. So
I'm only mimicking what
we're trying
the state did state, and I do agree with the state. You need to file a notice of intent. Whether it's considered for approval and considered for allowing of you to do the work is how you present the whole application process. I think personally, you're going to need more plants than you imagine you could put in that pond before you're going to have success. You had very little success. You had this. I don't want to get into how many millions of gallons around the whole pond, but the amount of plants you would need to achieve the goal that you state in some of the information you got from ESS, you're going to need over 1 million plants in that pond.
So,
That's
based
not
on the
something
results of our tests so far, it appears that it's far more efficient than other types of plants used for phytoremediation.
How much
purposes.
nitrogen do you expect to remove in the window of opportunity you have from early May to September?
Well, it depends.
And then what happens in the wintertime?
I don't ever know. Well, we take.
No,
we
but in the
sample it.
wintertime, we still have nitrogen coming
Right.
into the pond, so
Right.
there is never a net, you're never gonna finish or clean the pond.
Right.
It's
We'll
gonna be
never
more
eliminate-
of a maintenance thing.
That's correct. We're never going to eliminate all of the nutrients from the watershed. Our goal is to get phosphorus level just below the tipping point so that the harmful algae blooms can't occur. And it's been successful in hundreds of pilot tests, in lab environments, in field tests, and our initial tests are yielding fabulous results. I understand now that there is a process, and at the same time, trying to see if we can work together to figure out how we can best move forward and focus on the goal.
You were working with somebody from UMass about this too?
Yes, we've been working with Professor Yang for 11 or 12 years and have looked at different emerging technologies that could potentially help. We tested things initially in the lab, did comprehensive literature reviews, and based on my reading at that point, it didn't appear to us that we needed a permit. Apparently, there's a different interpretation, that's fine.
Basic issue here is not at this point how well it works, the fact that you just went ahead without consulting the Conservation Commission or getting a permit in violation of the State Wetland Protection Act. If you're a collaborator, I could have come in here, explain what's happening in U2 and given us some of this literature to look at, and we could say, okay, this maybe looks like a good thing, we'll let them start, or maybe not, but that wasn't done. I mean, you gotta go through the right process first. I think that's the main issue here.
Thank you for your feedback. I understand that there are processes in place. It is challenging when looking at the series of events that led to this unfortunate enforcement of the order. Processes are important. And I didn't even get a phone call. My father didn't get a phone call. The first thing that we heard that there was an allegation of a potential permit violation was after things had already been removed. And I'm not here, I absolutely understand that we are all focused on clean water and healthy environments. And if we're focusing on rigidly adhering to the processes, it seems like there may be a bit of a double standard. And at the same time, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we just want clean water, and we want to work with you to try to figure out how we can set up the next phase of this testing to
I think unfortunately, you're gonna have to file the permit with the state. You're gonna have to file the permit with the state. That's just that's the guidance from the state. There's no two ways about that. We're gonna have to file that, or you're gonna have to file that, and then, let the state give their feedback.
Okay, and I would request that we rescind the enforcement order. We are happy to walk through the permit process moving forward for the beta phase test. And at this point, it doesn't seem germane or necessary to have the enforcement order in place, particularly when it wasn't substantiated before it was executed. And if you don't know what the plants are that you're growing, you can't say that they're in violation of the act. And frankly,
The activity was a violation of the act, whether the plants or not, it was the activity.
It's the activity on
The plants just doubled the violation because you keep skirting around the fact, Laura, that you have a plant species was growing that isn't even supposed to be in the United States. Water spinach is not on the list of not allowed,
so
but you keep skirting around the fact. You want us to be trusting you, but you've brought a plant in that's on the federal list that's not even supposed to be brought into. Some southern states have it already banned because of its evasiveness. So these are my concerns. You seem like you want to make a goal, which is fine, but my first opinion to you is find a plant that maybe is more native to our area, which vetiver grass is getting some consideration, but I just seen you're not looking at the whole facts of the matter. You just want clean water, but
Yes.
each place you want to put one of these things is a separate permit. So you can't go to Sawdy Pond with this. You would have to file for Sawdy Pond. You want to go put one of these in the South Etoka Pond, you'd have to file.
So-
The NOI we give you isn't a blanket NOI to put them wherever you want in the town of Westport. So each is a separate activity. So you would have to identify how many plants you think you're going to need, and you would have to quantify that. But each one of these plants cannot clean the amount of water that DeVault Pond holds. DeVault Pond, secondly, is a great pond. It's governed by the state of Massachusetts. So when you take your personal property and put it into a public pond, it's no longer personal property. Okay? That's how I see it. It's just like your boat floating away and no one claims it. You can actually, you can acquire that. So you got to understand that the place you're putting this wasn't necessarily attached to your dock. It was freely floating in the
It
pond.
was attached. We had one attached to the dock and one attached.
The majority of those would be, the ones that are attached to your dock are going to be tied off to the others.
Well, that were near the, well, the one that was
Okay,
attached to the
listen,
dock.
but even with the dock, you need a permit from the state.
Correct.
That's not.
The bottom line is we need to get a permit from the state. That's what we need.
Okay, what type of permit are you looking for specifically? Do you
A
think-
notice of intent application with filing fees, the abutter notifications that go along with the normal process. That's all identified within the procedures that the state has on their website. Or, I'm available to guide you through the process, but it's not a hard application, but you just need to present it in a manner that makes it seem better than worse.
Are these plants going to be put in one section of the pond, or are they going to be put all along the pond?
It's just in one section, you put them in, they float there, extract nutrients, and then you take them out. It's a relatively simple technology, simple process. Growing a garden near the water attached to the dock,
So how will that clean the water on the north end versus the south end? There's no plants to do.
because the water circulates, and it's not about getting all of the excess phosphorus and nitrogen out of the water. It's about getting it below the tipping point, so the harmful algae can't bloom. And if you get it for a DeVault Pond, and you need to move the needle by 0.03 parts per billion on the phosphorus level, it's not a lot. I mean, you just have to get enough nutrients out so that it can just push it past the tipping point. And this is the first year we've not had a harmful algae bloom until very late in the season. And Saudi
Your
and
positiveness
South
is
Dakota are
wonderful,
both
but
greens.
it's not because of your plants.
All right, well, I mean, either way, you need to file a notice of intent. If you do have any questions, Chris can answer your questions on it to the best of his ability. And then at that point, when you file a notice of intent, and we'll lift the enforcement order. All right?
Was this discussed before? I'm just sort of confused about how the investigatory process works. I mean, can we just file the notice of intent and move forward with this? Or are there other...
Pending the approval.
Once you get approval, then you can move forward, that's right. Just like anybody else that comes in here for anything, once they get the notice of intent, they have a 7-day waiting period, is it? A
10-day appeal
10-day
period,
period.
and if you don't get approval, you can request the state to review it under the appeal process to the state.
Okay. And then for the different watersheds, so other people that live both in between DeVault Pond and Saudi Pond, and other residents that live on Saudi and on South Etoka have reached out and asked for help because they've seen that the water's clear. Would it be feasible for us to put it all together in one, to have the test being of the 3 watersheds?
And you need one for each watershed, and they're gonna want you to state's gonna want you to specify, it's almost like beach nourishment, they're gonna want you to specify where you're gonna put them, how many plants you're gonna put down, they're gonna ask for some specifics on it. So that's something you have to be prepared with the state, they're gonna look for that kind of information.
Maybe one presentation during, for the hearing on this
Right.
Ball Pond.
Right.
That way, we'll
One
have
presentation.
a better handle on it for the next pond. I mean, I think we all just need to know more about what you're trying to do, and I'd like to hear from a scientist and an engineer. If an engineer comes in here and tells us fibs, their stamp is on their plans. There's some recourse. I don't think we can just take the word of a well-intentioned city resident who wants to clean up a pond. That we need more science and data to back this up.
And we have put together some additional studies and put together notice of intent. Would the determination of applicability be something that we could consider? My initial reading was that it was such a-
Not for a project like this in a pond.
No. One other request, just a friendly request, Chris, in the future, if you have a question, can you please just call me first?
You can make that statement, Laura, if you like. I did discuss with you personally, asked you what the plans were. You were very invasive, never told me what the plans were. If you would have told me what the plans were at that point in time, I would have told you to get the things out of the pond. And when I discussed it with you, I said, if you keep it, kind of small, yeah, but every weekend you're adding a new float. And every weekend was another float. So you took a little more than what you should have. And I try to be as personally keeping myself out of that because we're neighbors. So I probably shouldn't even be sitting here hearing this, to be honest with you, because in my eyes, I may be in conflict because I have direct interest in the Wall Pond, value to my property. And again, I don't want to discourage your enthusiasm, but you're not a scientist. You've been relying on information from professors that never come forward and never guided you to say that you need to file. So that kind of seems everybody's been in the limelight. And you've done efforts to do things, but this Wall Pond Association is made up mostly of families and maybe a few families around the pond, but this isn't a 15-member body. This is a very small group of people that are
All
trying
right,
to achieve
Chris,
something.
let's move on.
We have more than 15 members, and the enforcement order was issued without asking what the plans were, which means that he didn't know if there was a violation.
Well, the violation was that you had an unpermitted structure in the pond, regardless of the plants. You had an unpermitted structure. You can't throw a dock in this pond. Oh, was that a boat? No, a floating dock requires a permit.
A floating dock requires
Yes,
a
it does.
permit?
Legally
Like
permitted.
a blow-up duck?
No, a dock.
Floating.
So is that your sunbathing area where the
Oh, no,
plants were?
I'm
all right,
just
okay.
curious.
No, I'm not gonna mince words with you, but you can't have unpermitted structures like that. I mean, that's a real violation. The plants were just kind of like, like as Chris said, the second part of it. But
A little bit. Back it up.
but we employ, just apply for a permit. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Next we have William. Clay Dennis has continued 10/23.
Yeah, it's continued, it's 10/23.
All right. So we have a septic repair for Clay Dennis, 14 Brookwood Drive. That's going to be continued to 10/23. All right, so just need a motion to continue Clay Dennis, 14 Brookwood Drive to 10/23. The motion?
Motion to continue.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right. William Johnson, notice of intent, 1636E, Drift Road, construct garage, carport, driveway, and buffer zone. Does anybody have Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, hey, Mark, how you doing?
Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Mark O'Shea with O'Shea and Associates, and this evening with my clients, William and Barbara Johnson, we're on property at 1636 E Drift Road in the Abilene neighborhood. The Johnsons own, as most of you are familiar with Abilene, it's a condominium neighborhood. With a lot of small cottages, and the Johnsons own the property, lot 57, lot 62, 30. It's basically a two-parcel property. Their cottage on this property is located on this lot here, and there's a vacant parcel that they also own. It's about an acre in size on the opposite side, and what the Johnsons are requesting to do is to get a permit to build a proposed garage with a carport and a clamshell driveway in the buffer zone. What we've done is we've shown on the plan the location. We originally submitted the plan and then revised it based on some comments we had received from Chris. We shifted the garage over slightly to the west, and we've proposed the installation of several storm pack chambers to accept the roof water. Downspouts that are going to be coming from the proposed structure. As you can see on the plan, we've shown erosion control, silt fencing around the perimeter of the area of activity. All the activity that's being proposed is taking place in the buffer zone to the wetland is shown, and we are asking this evening that you vote to issue an order of conditions per the design.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, William Johnson, 1636E Church Road. This is a notice of intent application, Boucher and Associates, with Mark Boucher here this evening. Report date is September 4th, 2018. There is a file number with no adverse comments. It's SE 802396. The site visit was on August 31st, 2018. The owner of the property would like to construct a garage on a vacant lot within the Aberdeen Way neighborhood. The lot has wetlands to the rear. Wetland flags number 1 through 10 were walked and determined to be accurate. The owner has initiated work prior to the filing up to the edge of the delineated wetland. It appears this area was cleared of trees and clamshells parking area was created. The owner mentioned that the clearing was done prior to his purchase, but he did place the clamshells. The garage proposed would be 32 feet by 32 feet and would be approximately 10 feet from the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland. A 12-foot carport will be attached to the west side and the clamshell parking to remain. The setback from the property line at the street is 20, not 25 as is required. But in discussion with the building commissioner, this is a private roadway, and he is going to request an approval in writing from the homeowners association from the Aberdeen Way, allowing the setback of 20 feet. So that should be alleviated by that letter. So again, this is entirely a buffer zone activity. Concerns, roof runners should be directed to a drywall system, as Mark has mentioned. He has provided that here. So recommendations, Westport Conservation Commission should approve the 32 by 32 garage with roof runoff directed into a dry well system. And I will also add that erosion controls be the limit of all work. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Mark, what's the condition of the area now that this is all going to get done in?
Well, this area in here that's shown as existing clamshell parking area is that, in fact, that's cleared. As Chris mentioned, and it was indicated to me by the owners, that area was actually cleared prior to their purchase. I took a look on Google Earth, and they purchased the property in 2013. On the 2010 area, you can actually see there's car parking in this area, so there's evidence that they didn't do the clearing. Johnson's did obviously put the clamshells down without being aware of the permit was needed just to put that surface down there. The remainder of the property is a wooded lot.
Any questions?
Yeah, it seems that they did this clearing and making this parking lot right up to the edge of the wetland. Now, it wasn't in the wetland, but it seems to me that, wouldn't that be some kind of a violation to just go in the buffer zone right up to the wetland like that without coming before the commission first?
Well, yes, in a sense, Burton, this is, I would consider this almost an after-the-fact filing, I guess, per se, because this is what we request of the applicant if we did discover the violation. So I think they are bringing that forward, not knowingly, I guess, in a sense, but I think this can justify what they have done to prior time.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? If there's no questions, they're looking for a motion. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So,
I move that we issue a order of conditions for this project, approving the garage with the roof runoff directed into a drywall system.
Okay. Jason, you had a question?
This is kind of an awkward situation for me. I'm actually in a butter. The green card sent to the life estate I actually own that house. I granted a life estate to a family member. So that probably should have come to me. It's not a big deal, but if anything else requires a butter notification, then I'll get you my information.
Sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's written in the assessors, but
Yeah.
that's what they gathered there.
That's how this.
yeah, it's Jason Karen Powell owned the house. Life estate granted to, so I'm not completely sure who would have the final say on that, but,
Was the green card signed on your behalf as far as the representative of the property?
it wasn't.
Didn't go to you.
It didn't go to me, it went to the house.
Yes.
And the person with life estate
Signed it.
signed it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it may have been sent there in error, and then it was signed, but it's, again, it's not a big deal.
All right.
All right, do we have a motion? Do we have a second for somebody? Okay. Do you want to abstain? Or you
I'll
want
abstain from this
Okay.
one, yeah.
So we have a motion from Bert, second from Grace. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, and one abstention, that's Jason.
Thank you.
Cummings Lane Association, map 71, lot 136, beach nourishment, removal of invasive vegetation, riverfront. Anybody here for that?
Sir. Thank you. Have a seat. Mr. Chairman, there really is no plan here, but this is a parcel of land that is the Cummings Lane Association. The property is at the end of Cummings Lane. It is utilized by the members within the Cummings Lane Association for access and for dock purposes. On the end of September, the end of August, I was down in the vicinity and I observed the members placing sand along the waterfront, and I immediately identified myself and asked that they comply with applying for a permit. Again, the sand is spread above mean high water portion to provide an area for beach use. They would like to treat also a small portion of Phragmites, approximately 5 feet by 75 feet, that is taken over on the shoreline. The Phragmites will be treated by a professional applicator using the accepted herbicide Rodeo. After treatment, the dead stalks will be cut and removed. Repeat spraying may be required. Mass DEP commented with their file number issuance of SC 802397 that the activity described was vague and they will need a Chapter 91 license. Well, as I just stated to you, the gentleman here that represents you, so he is aware that this sand must stay above mean high water. I did discuss that with him, so that kind of alleviates the need for a Chapter 91 license. Secondly, the sand is being applied to a small area. As you can see in the photo, this is probably a 75, if that, foot area that they applied the sand to. So it's not a significant 10, 12 yards is adequate for maybe not even every season is it needed. Again, he also mentions the project may qualify as an ecological restoration project, but in this case, this is just a treatment of a small narrow strip of land that extends along the waterfront just to the left of the sand area. And as I mentioned, it's 5 feet wide by approximately, to their frontage extending that way, I guess 75. But this is a very simple area to treat. It's above mean high water. So he felt that this was an area they could maybe obtain acceptable removal of that Phragmites. So with the DEP comments, I think by way of me explaining to you, I think it alleviates some of their concerns they had. So recommendations, the Westport Conservation Commission should approve the beach nourishment in a small area of Phragmite removal with conditions that the work be performed by a licensed professional and sand be placed seasonally as needed above mean high water. Lastly, the sand must be compatible with similar grain size as is existing. There are two sources of that. One is the A.J. Potter and Sons, and there's another source I believe Medeiros has in Dartmouth. Dartmouth, yes. So that is for the members. Again, the file number has been granted as well. That's all.
I'd like to add to that the agent has to be contacted 48 hours ahead of time before they do the work, so you can check up on it to make sure it's being done correctly. And obviously, if they can't get a hold of you on vacation, they have to wait.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the table? Any questions from the audience? All right, if not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the
All right,
and 48 hour notice.
yep. Second. And Kevin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's unanimous, then. Make sure you contact,
And the condition will be specified on the order. when it's mailed to you.
just make sure you contact Chris
Thank
before you do the work, okay, sir?
Thank you for coming, for your cooperation.
Brian Giblin, notice of intent,
One thing is, Chris has been terrific to work with.
60 Shore Road, construct dock with overwalk riverfront area, coastal bank, marsh land, subject to coastal storm flowage. Sean, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I am Sean Leach, Site Tech Engineering, representing Brian Giblin. This is a project located on East 6 East Shore Road, which is part of the Mascasat development on the east branch of the Westport River. It's right at the corner, almost at the corner where Mascasat Meadow Road and East Shore Road meet. Mr. Giblin has an existing approved license from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and had an order of conditions that was applied for in August of 2012. License was granted in September 2013. Mr. Giblin started the work earlier this summer. I was notified by Mr. Capone that it didn't have a valid order of conditions. It had expired. So we're here tonight to basically re-up the order of conditions to him to build. What's happening here, this is his walkway. There was a dock out here. At one time, the walkway was all busted up. It was laying on a salt marsh. Mr. Giblin has a license, basically, that replaces the walkway over the salt marsh at a 1-to-1 ratio and adds a float to the Westport River that was there before, in compliance with the dock policy and the regulations of Chapter 91. The work has been started, as I said, as with an expired order of conditions, and it was noted by the component that I should go out there, and it's built a little low. It hasn't been completed or anything. It's only been about 40 feet. So I've advised Mr. Giblin to raise the existing work a little bit to make the 1-to-1 ratio as required under the regulations. And he just here tonight to ask for an order of conditions to complete the work and put the dock in, as he's been waiting 3 years to do this.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Giblin, 6 East Shore Road. This is a notice of intent application. Sean Leach from SciTech is representing. The report dated September 5th, 2018. There is a file number SC 802398. We are waiting for Marine Services Director comments and Division of Marine Fisheries comments. As Sean mentioned, they do have a valid Chapter 91 license for the proposed walkway, 270 feet to a fixed pier with a gangway and an 8x20 float. The dock was previously permitted, but the order conditions expired. The owner had started work not knowing of its expiration. Work started was the digging of the walkway posts. The walkway crosses a large section of marsh, and efforts should be made to prevent disturbing the marsh. Public access around the walkway is provided along the existing lawn area. This walkway is shown with a 4-foot, 5-inch minimum separation above the marsh and a finished height of 5 feet, 5 inches. The plan does not show float stops, and they will be required to be set at 30 inches above the bottom of the river. The plan should be changed to reflect the requirement of float stops in our dock policy. Use of a machine on the marsh is not allowed, as was being done in the beginning stages of this work. Work should be done by hand using a timber platform to keep off marsh. This is simply a 4x4 or a 5x5 box that is made out of timbers with either a piece of plywood, just to keep the force of the body and the impressions of the work efforts to keep from trampling the marsh. I think this is an easy area. You can drag it from pile to pile and then remove it off the marsh when he's done. The piles will be driven to 10 foot or refusal. The walkway posts appear to be short. From what I had mentioned to Sean, it may need to be removed in order to achieve the correct height. Resource areas to be impacted would be the salt marsh, land under the ocean, shellfish, and riverfront areas. Recommendations, Westport Conservation Commission should approve the proposed 270-foot walkway, gangway, and float on the east branch of the river pending receipt of Division of Marine Fisheries comments. The revised plan with the float stops and the following conditions. The walkway constructed shall use timber platform to work from, to prevent trampling in the salt marsh. Work shall be done by hand. Excess spoils be removed from the marsh. Walkway must be a minimum 4 feet 5 inches height from the marsh, and the overall height of the walkway should be 5 feet 5 inches. Float stops are required, no CCA lumber, and the old walkway to be removed from the marsh and disposed of off-site. For the reference, the timber and the materials being used to date are not CCA lumber. I did verify that from the placards on the lumber, so I thank Mr. Giblin for that one.
All right, Sean, so pretty much,
Just two things. One, the float stops aren't required here. There's more than 3.5 feet of water at low tide out in front of this dock, so there is no need for float stops. They'll never be close to sitting at the bottom. There's actually 4 to 5 feet. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought it was like 1.5 feet.
Well, when you go out, it drops off fairly quickly. And the other thing I just want to mention it is subject to the Marine Fisheries. Marine Fisheries made a comment during the whole licensing process about this, and there was no problems with what was going on here. I don't know if we need a new, for an existing licensed dock. I don't believe we should be required to have a new. They're not going to make a comment on something.
This is a dock that the permit expired though, Sean. It's just like doing a new permit. You got to notify Division of Marine Fisheries with your application.
Right.
Did you notify Division of Marine Fisheries? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I did not notify Division of Marine Fisheries. I notified National Heritage, but I did not notify Marine Fisheries because they commented during the Chapter 91 license, and the Chapter 91 license was issued with no problems. So I'm not sure what would change between now and then.
You show mean high water at 2.7.
Correct.
You show zero elevation and mean low water just under the float. So the float's not sitting on the bottom?
No, this dotted line here is mean low water of 0. It
I'm
runs
looking
right
at-
at the base of the
But I'm
salt
looking at
line.
your cross section here, and it represents 0 right at the base of the float.
Oh no, that's 0 going across. The bottom is this line here, this angled line here.
So you think you had that much water there, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was much shallower.
That's why this one-
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, to the members, if he's got 30 inches, then I would advise you all that they're not required, but I just, given that close to the proximity to marsh, I didn't think he would have that depth at that particular point, but.
Well, we'll
I
check
made
it
a
again with the
mistake.
final fixed pier. If it's not 30 inches, we'll certainly install float stops.
All right, well, if you allow us to put they may be required then.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I see that doesn't currently correspond with our dock policy.
how about DMF comments, if he already has comments from the 91 license?
I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, standard procedure with NOI, Mr. Chairman, is you're supposed to check that box and send it to the state, so, that's why they have this procedure, that if it's below mean high water, you're supposed to notify the Division of Marine Fisheries.
I would agree with Mr. Capone on that, but just in this case, it's an existing licensed dock that's been through the whole process.
If they didn't give you adverse comments in the beginning, why would you be afraid to send them adverse comments in the second phase?
I just didn't think it was necessary for a licensed dock.
Well, by the time Chapter 9 Natural Heritage gets back to you, I bet you'd get DMF comments back.
Yeah, I would get that too if I ever get anything from National Heritage.
All right,
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, if you could provide us those prior comments, I would
Okay.
be willing, if the board would be willing to accept those prior comments. They do reflect, 4 years ago maybe?
3 years ago.
3 years ago?
September 2013, or
Okay.
actually 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, see, you can't add.
all right, so we're gonna modify it if, full stops may be required, and you're gonna verify the depth of the water.
Yes.
And also, if you provide good comments from DMF, then we're not gonna require them, because it is already a licensed structure not too long
Correct.
ago. Does that sound about right? All right, does that sound right, Sean?
Sounds good to me.
All right. You wanna come back a second time?
No, I did not.
Usually, okay. All right, any comments from the table? If none, any comments from the audience?
So are we making a motion to approve this, or?
Motion to approve it pending, pending settling the 30-inch height, if they may not need them, Chris will take care of that, and providing that Sean gives us a DMF comments.
Correct.
All right? Did you get that, Ms. Leon? Yeah. Okay, so do we have a motion to that effect? You can do it, Jason. You're a big boy.
Motion to approve with Chris's additions.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimous, now.
Thank you.
It's a record, Sean.
Congratulations.
One night.
I didn't mean to point at you when I was talking about engineer Don Phipps. You just happened to be there.
Robert,
Yeah, don't pronounce.
I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, sir. Sazinski, RDA 319 Robert Street, repair septic system, construct garage and buffer zone.
Can you spell it?
Surinsky.
How do you spell it?
Surinsky.
Zirinsky.
All right.
Zirinsky. That's what I was saying.
Sounds
There's no
pretty-
N in it, so I'm totally wrong too. And I'm Polish, so. We'll just call him Robert Ski.
How was your evening tonight, Len? Doing good? Good.
Sarat.
Vodka.
Okay, Light Law, Westport Environmental Design, with an RDA for Richard Zurinsky at 319 Robert Street on the shores of the Salty Pond. Salty Pond's down in here, continues on this way. The project is, number one, to replace this failed septic system. This is the existing house. This is the existing septic tank, and we'd like to add this breezeway and garage on like so, and upgrade this parking area to go along with the garage construction. The buffer zone is in yellow, it's a 100-foot buffer zone, one like so.
Spyglass up.
And even also slightly in the buffer zone, part of it's going to be in the buffer zone, and part of the construction is going to be in the buffer zone. So I'm probably 97 foot of the pond from the right behind it. The septic system, septic tank, full septic tank, totally out of it. So essentially it's a minor construction project with activity in the buffers. And there's no major change in grades, there is some change in grading back here, but ever so slightly. That's pretty much it for me.
Mr. Chairman, Richard Sazinski, 319 Robert Street. This is a request for determination. Westport Environmental Design, Len Potter is here this evening representing. Report date is September 4th, 2018. The site visit was also on September 4th, 2018. The owner has filed a request for determination to construct a new sewage disposal system outside the buffer zone and a garage 24 by 24 with an attached breezeway. The garage at its closest point will be 97 feet from the edge of Salty Pond. Erosion controls will be staked in place around the proposed construction. So this is very limited impact, as Lenny mentioned, and it's at the extreme outer reaches of our jurisdiction. So what I recommend the board this evening, Westport Conservation Commission should issue a negative box 3 determination for the 24 by 24 garage and basically the piping for the new leaching location.
So you fell 3 feet within the buffer zone, that's it, huh?
You know, well, I can't lie, it's there.
All right. Okay, well, any comments on the table? If not, any comments from the audience, questions? Okay. If not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Issue negative box 3.
Okay. Second from Grace. All those in favor? Okay. It's unanimous, now.
Thanks, Len.
Town of Westport, RDA 400 Old County Road, install new public water supply in the
You
buffer.
missed one, Mr. Jim.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Mark Gendro, RDA 13 Lakeshore Ave, install foundation wall and sonotubes for house alteration. How are you? Good, how are you? Good.
Hi, Mark. Mr. Chairman, Mark is here this evening after him supplying a building permit application. I became contact with him because the activity he's proposing would be within our jurisdiction. I'm utilizing his current septic plan that he had submitted to the commission prior to for a negative determination, but Mr. Gendro is installing a full concrete wall in this bump out right here. He's rehabbing the home, and this will allow him a little more square. Obviously, it's only 6 feet square footage to square off the dwelling. So this work is obviously within 100 feet of the pond, and he will be installing sonotubes just on this area for the location of a deck. So this is filed again on a building permit, so I was able to get him to cooperate and apply the requested determination. So what I'm looking for this evening is a negative determination, negative box 3 determination for the wall, 8-inch concrete wall that will be encompassing and squaring off that residence. The closest work is approximately 35 feet, and that would be the sonotube placement. And that's just a level deck coming off the back of the home to allow the view of the Salvatore Pond, which is adjacent to it.
Just, you see the wall where it's going, guys? Yeah. There you go, okay. All right. It's pretty simple. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Is this ours?
Yeah, that goes in the file, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, if no questions, we're looking for a motion.
Motion to issue a negative box 3 determination.
Right. Second from Jason. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Yes, that's it.
People hit negative and they think it's bad. Negative's a good thing, negative. When you hit negative, you mean that's not no. All right, Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Town of Westport, RDA, 400 Old County Road, install new public water supply in the buffer zone.
Oh, it's perfect right there, because I think that camera angle kind of fixes it right up there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
That's fine. You can start whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt Broussard from Ditch Engineering. We're civil engineers for the co-located middle high school project on Old County Road. We were before the commission, I guess maybe 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, with an RDA request, RDA application related to construction of a water supply well in the buffer zone to the west on the east end of the school site. Subsequent to that negative determination issuance, the factors related to the overall site design for the project necessitated shifting the well location to the east, kind of down. There's I don't know if you folks have been out to the site. There's a really steep embankment off, kind of to the east of the location we originally were looking at. This is the location of the well that we're looking at right now. That's well 1. So what we originally filed with the initial, the second RDA application was this plan, which was an exercise to show what the site access would need to be if it was derived from the school property, the main development part of the school site. So as you can see, if you take a look at the plans that were submitted, it's a fair amount of earthwork that would be required to construct a gravel access road to drill the well and to provide annual maintenance and access to the well. Subsequent to that filing, we were asked by the school building committee to explore another option, which was recently sent into the commission, which would be accessed from school frontage that they have along Old County Road, which is what was represented on this sketch. So as you can see, it's significantly less site disturbance that's required to construct the access road. For both of the options, the actual disturbance and activity within the buffer zone itself is not that much different. It's the activity required beyond the wetland buffer that really distinguishes the two options. This is the preferred option of the school building committee. So what we're before the commission to do the same exercise as we went through last time to see if the commission would consider this to be an activity that would not require notice of intent application. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I'll be obviously happy to answer any questions you have about the project or the well construction and the activity that's required, etc.
Mr. Chairman, Town of Westport, this is the Old County Road, or the proposed middle school, high school area. This is a request for determination. Niche Engineering is here representing. Report dated September 10th, 2018. The site visit was also on September 10th, 2018. The school department has made a change to their previous well location approved by the commission. As the gentleman mentioned, we did issue a negative determination for a prior consideration with the access coming down between those two walls and just coming to the top of that slope in the buffer zone. The tennis courts were moving toward the east, and that would fall within the well's protective radius. Tennis courts being proposed just up to the left there. That has caused the state to review this application, and it was determined by Mass DEP that they would not allow the encroachment of the tennis courts within that previously approved well location. They want the entire no disturb area to be encompassed by vegetated area. So the well will move down slope, and accessing from the current library parking lot would be a significant excavation to get the well rig down the slope. As he mentioned, the slope drops pretty quickly, so they would have to come and taper into the slope as you saw in that previous plan. In my eyes, I thought that would feel more positive towards a notice of intent application, given the amount of excavation that was going to be needed. They determined in this case to utilize the access from Old County Road. In my eyes, this is less disturbance in the buffer zone, although he mentioned it's equal. It's still not on a slope that is going to generate runoff and potential future impacts even after they remove the well and the equipment and etc. So this location I think is more feasible, and it seems to be a straight shot in, pretty level area, and give the well rig much more access in this case. The well location will have an area for spoil containment, as he shows just in that area. There's going to be actually a depression. As we have seen in the past, these wells can generate a lot of spoils, and we like to have something that collects that and causes it to settle out before any dirty water does make its way down the slope. The well would be approximately 45 feet from the edge of that bordering vegetated wetland. The erosion controls will be erected and placed below the work and will be maintained during the entire work until the area is seeded and established. Now, I just asked if you could represent, obviously this doesn't represent the connection of the well. So there is going to be a trench associated with this going up that hill. But this should be much more less impact than that roadway. So we will have I don't know if you're asking for a 12-foot area as far as the connection to the well.
For the actual pipe connection?
Yes.
That'll be a very narrow trench excavation. It's a very small line.
And you show approximately, we would be heading back right up the slope where that
Right,
double...
it's not actually shown on this plan, but what would happen when they actually run the line from the well, this will be after the well's constructed.
Correct.
It would be run, for the area within the buffer zone, it would run back along probably the gravel drive that had been excavated in that area, so it wouldn't disturb any additional buffer zone area. They would probably, for the size of the trench needed, they probably would just trench straight up that slope.
Okay.
Very low disturbance, would be a very narrow trench installation. The line would probably be done by if you're familiar with them, they're kind of like a track excavator, narrow width excavator would dig a kind of a deep, narrow trench, probably 5 to 6 feet deep. They would lay that line in and immediately backfill.
Okay.
So.
And they revegetate it when it's done to the line?
Right.
The line's revegetated?
Yeah, I mean, it would basically.
Just grow back.
It's going to grow back in a matter of weeks, probably.
I know that's not it, I'm just curious. All right.
So for the Westport Conservation recommendations, I do suggest the commission issue a negative box 3 determination for the well installation for the alternative, or I'll consider this new access off of Old County Road.
Excuse me. Any questions for the table?
So, if I'm picturing this right, the well is basically up on top of the hill behind the school?
No, it's
Or
below
behind
the hill.
Oh, it's below?
Yes.
And then they're going to trench through the hill?
It's kind of.
Well, yeah, the trench would come up the slope, but it would be, it would follow the topography.
It's kind of hard to see here because it's screened out.
Yeah,
This
no,
is the existing library
Yes.
right there. This is the existing middle school over there.
Right.
This is on the east end of the site.
All right. Any questions from the audience?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, you can just come stay up here, state your name for me, and just ask a question. Thank you.
Both of us are affected by this.
Okay.
I didn't even get this letter.
Can you just, can you state your name?
I was never even informed.
Well, there's, oh, excuse me.
Names first.
Excuse me.
It's not over.
Let me just, let me, excuse me. There's no note about notifications for our RDA. That's why there's no notifications for our request for determination of applicability, only for a notice of intent. That's why you didn't get notified. Because
Why was I notified?
what's that?
Why was she notified?
Who notified you?
She got a letter.
I can't answer that. I believe Jim Ryan asked about some informal.
Oh, okay, well, that's fine, but as by, under the law, they don't have to send notifications out, but you just state your address and your name and ask your question, please. We'll do our best to answer.
Okay. On this map here, it comes perilously close to my stone wall in the back of my backyard. This access road, and it's gonna wreak havoc. I just want to know, there are at least 2 stone walls perpendicular to this stone wall that goes along back of my property, back of her property, the back of a property on Old County Road. And then it juts off in this direction to the well. Now, I'd like to know what that distance is.
The distance of what, now you've got,
The distance from the well to the buffer zone.
45 feet, the well to the edge of the wetland is 45 feet. The yellow area is the buffer zone. This is the commission's jurisdiction, all within the yellow. This area is uplands. We have no jurisdiction within this work area. This is the protective radius for the well. The way they designed this is they wanted to keep the protective radius within their property. So this radius is staying entirely within the town's parcel. The previous well that we approved was just up on the top part of this hill, up here. So the radius really has not really changed much. The only access, again, because they were going to come down this slope, they were going to have to come down here and cut into the hill. We felt that this was a more feasible access. This is an access for well services, so this isn't going to be an access that's used all the time.
Only, it's never going to be used for anything.
No, this is purposely just to service and access this well for future repairs or maybe maintenance of the structure.
May I address that?
Yes, go ahead, that's fine, you can.
Just through the commission. The purpose of the road was twofold. One is to enable access for a well-drilled truck to get to the well. Right. So because of that, there are minimum bearing requirements necessary to carry one of those vehicles because they're fairly heavy. So that's the main purpose of initially constructing the gravel access. It's going to be fairly narrow.
So how many trees are you going to cut down? How much brush? How much?
I believe that the survey.
That whole thing is all trees and all forests.
Well, but just so you know, that area in the white is not within our jurisdiction. Really, our jurisdiction is the yellow. So I understand you're talking about, but that's not our jurisdiction. So, we're here to rule on the part in the yellow. But I'll allow him to answer your question if he knows it off the top of his head, how many square feet of disturbance.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I know there are stone walls.
That's right.
Old stone walls, historical stone walls.
So there,
I can't see how you would not
there
knock them down.
There are 2 stone walls that parallel the access.
Yeah.
There are also 2 walls here,
Yeah.
which will have to be partially dismantled to create the road. Which would
And
be
will you
an
build them
access.
back again?
Well, they'll need to maintain an access way of probably around 10 feet for a service vehicle, long term. So the one thing I was going to also mention is that the long-term use of the road is basically, unless there's a problem, you're getting an annual access by a service truck, so like a bigger size vehicle would use it. Otherwise, the plan is to have the entrance gated, chained, so it can't be used by anybody. It's not any kind of access to the school at all. So that's really the only access that we're trying there. I do know based on the survey, the topographic survey has identified a few fairly large trees that are inside those 2 walls that they would have to be able to construct the road.
It would be better if you got rid of the saplings in between and thinned out, the smaller trees, like do a really good job. Not just cut down really nice old maples, but some of the,
When the road is built, part of the specification for this construction, in particular when we get into the site, that was gravel. interior portions, especially in the areas adjacent to the buffer zone and within the zone one as well. One of the construction requirements will be for an on-site walk with the contractor that's selected for the project to specifically identify tree removal and the actual path of the roadway. So if where this is shown right now happens to be, directly adjacent to a large specimen tree, for example, I don't know that that's the case, but if that were the case, there'd be an adjustment made, obviously. And, everyone loves trees, but it would be less expensive to construct as well.
Correct.
So, it's an incentive for everybody involved to minimize the amount of disturbance that's needed to get that access.
How long will it take to develop?
I don't think that I've seen an estimate for that, but typically for a road like that, it would not be nothing real long. I think it would be a matter of weeks to construct.
And when are you supposed to start that?
As soon as
They pass.
the permit is.
Okay.
Now, why do they have to dig the well there when there's already, what happened to the two wells that were on
The new
this
road.
school site?
I'm happy to.
Well, I don't, that's,
I'd be happy to also.
Never meet tomorrow night.
yeah, that's not really pertinent to this. Right now, this is about the work in the buffer zone, so if you have questions about that, we can answer it.
I'd be happy to talk to you if you need response to that. So.
All right, does anybody else have any questions about work in the buffer zone?
Yes, I do.
Just state your name, please, ma'am, when you're out there.
Cynthia Anderson.
Yes, ma'am.
My property is mine here. My husband and I, our property is here. We're even very skeptical about that because there's a little bit of discrepancy through this whole planning as far as where lines are and property lines and boundaries.
No markers out there. They said they had surveyed. There's one marker out there.
There's no markers, so we're a little skeptical as to where things are going because in some of the plans, and it's always very vague, just as when you had the last vote for the well, the very, very next day, within 24 hours, less than 24 hours, they changed the well site again because they changed the, they had a vote and they changed the location of the tennis courts. So on you voting for the well one day and the next day they changed it. So this was, come up again, and I came to conservation and I went to the office and said, so, why did they do that? If they just voted it, everybody came to the meeting and then they changed it again. And they said, well, I always forget his name, but he said, well, they'll have to come again. And I said, well, most likely will be just okayed again, which I'm sure you were going to vote it in again. My concern is that where are the tennis courts in relation to this plan right here?
Well, I don't, what we're here to address tonight is just the yellow area, where the tennis court, the tennis courts have to be with outside the big circle radius. I don't know where they're going, and they could put those anywhere in the
tennis
property.
courts are supposed to go right in here, so where, I would like to know.
I'm not, sure, you can answer it, but that's outside our purview for
No,
the,
I'm just going to explain the reason why those elements are not on this plan, because these plans are intended to be construction documents for the wellhead itself. So it's a separate construction contract than the actual school project.
Okay.
So that's why those things are not included here.
All right, well, let me just show you. This is the way the flow of the water that goes downhill and goes right to where the tennis court area and the wetland area where the wells. And then this is also the same spot. So I would just like to know, where is the drainage going to go? What's the conservation plan?
as far as tonight we're talking about the well.
Okay.
We're not talking, the original for the school and the drainage plans, that's all stuff that's going through the planning board. So what we're talking about is that little green area going into the yellow area in the front.
And a lot of the abutters are very worried about this because...
But we have no purview on the white area, just so you know. It's out of our purview.
Okay. well, okay, the butter right here is very worried.
Okay,
My husband and I
Okay.
are very worried about what this well and construction can do to our properties. And not only ours, but even though they're not in your yellow zone, but these properties are downhill from there and also are getting a lot of drainage from this site. And their basements are flooding, and what does it do to their septic and to their water, you know? So that's why we're concerned. You know, out of your yellow zone, we are right here, and I'm sure a little bit yellow is there on our property, so we are concerned with how this will affect our property on top of all the other violations that are going on our property now. So, yeah, we're very concerned with the new project and what's being voted in and what's being okayed, because there's already, on this side, there's already a big violation there on Ferry's property, on Wade's property, and our property. So, and which comes down off our properties onto our butters. So, yeah, we're, and it is conservation. It might not be in the yellow zone, but it is conservation.
but you understand that we follow the law of the state of Massachusetts. The law of the state of Massachusetts says if it's not within so many feet of buffer zone, it's not in our jurisdiction, whether or not water drains off. So if there's an issue where there's water draining off the property, that's an issue. If they're putting a new structure up, that should be brought up with the planning board. Okay, but so, you know, all we really, I mean, I can't say tonight I can not vote in your well because there's water draining another piece of property onto the ferry farm, whatever the case may be. We have to look at.
I'm talking about right here, like I said, we're here, we're in the buffer zone.
I understand that.
Yellow doesn't end right there on this line.
Well,
Nor does the green extends.
No, I understand. The green is the actual wetland, I understand that, but we're looking at the little section where they're gonna put the well and say, does that wellhead have an adverse effect? Not what's there already and not what's been done in the past. Just like on Route 6, there's a lot of drainage that the state put in that drains onto people's property that would never be allowed today, but it's there today and it's grandfathered in. So I don't know what's been done in the past and I can't tell you.
On Route 6, are they redoing the whole plan?
No, I'm just making a point.
Making your point.
Making a point that we're not talking about, I don't know what's been done in the past. Today, we're here to discuss the area of where the well, the laneway goes into the yellow area for the well and the wellhead installation, and how that will have an impact in the buffer zone.
Okay, and how is this going to be protected by the construction of the well? How is this that goes beyond this little?
Well, they're taking that little area there, they're using gravel, which is pervious, so it's going to have this, will infiltrate, the water that hits that will infiltrate just as good as if it was dirt. And they're also, while they do the well and they have the spoils that come up from the well, they're collecting that and they'll be removing it off site.
Okay, so they're putting gravel in there?
The roadway is going to be gravel.
Yeah, they have to gravel the access in order to get the well in there.
Just the access road or all around the well?
No, just what you see.
Just what you see in the picture.
And what's the depth of the gravel on there?
Depending on the unsuitable of the soil, I wouldn't say more than 8 to 12 inches of gravel, depending if they find an area that's unsuitable, they may have to add 2 feet, depending on the weight of the well rig. As the engineer mentioned, the road is going in to meet standards because the well rig is excessively heavy, and you don't want it to be bogging down and getting obviously stuck, so that is, however.
Is any of that considered wetland in here?
The white's not a wetland, no. The only wetland is the green area on top, which attaches to your property in the back.
Extends, yes, further to the north.
And the yellow would be the 100-foot buffer zone around the,
That wetland does extend to the east, but it doesn't, it goes down towards you, then hooks down towards the Gifford Road culvert that drains under the roadway.
Okay, will they have to come before you for the tennis courts?
Yes.
any other comments or questions? Okay, if no comments or questions, looking for a motion
That would be a negative box 3 determination.
for a negative box 3 determination.
Motion to issue negative box 3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right, it's unanimous now. Paula Whalen, notice of intent, 174 East Beach Road, install tight tank to replace compromised tank on Barrier Beach and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Is anybody here for Ms. Whalen?
I showed you the whole oratory on that plan last meeting.
You didn't have what, green cards? Oh, no, I'm sorry, we weren't sure about the comments. Yeah, yeah. So Chris, why don't you address the comments? So just, so everybody knows, this was we started this last week, and it was, Chris recommended approval. So, as soon as they're done talking, we'll continue. Here you go, buddy.
I just updated one.
Yeah. You wanna read that?
No, this is the one I need. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, Lenny was here at the last meeting. This is Paula Whalen, 174 East Beach Road. This is a notice of intent. We since have had a file number issued, it's SC 802395. There were some comments on that relative to the allowance of this activity on Barrier Beach. But what the state didn't refer to is the fact that this tight tank has been in existence since 1968. Actually, it was a system, Lenny, if I'm not mistaken. Correct. So the applicant has filed to remove the existing 1,000-gallon tight tank that has become filled with sand, or it was an actual septic tank. They want to replace the tank with a new 2,000-gallon tank closer to East Beach Road. The lot is located on the ocean and contains a flood zone, coastal dune areas. The septic system was installed on this lot in 1968 and has not been used in a few years when the current owner was using a self-contained trailer. The new owner is reestablishing the use of the previous tight tank. Location of the new tight tank is 26 feet from the north property line and 90 feet from the mean high water mark. The area for the tank location does have beach grass growing thick, and attempts should be made to replant it off to one side, if that's possible. I believe Len can scoop it and just lay it on the sand. Work is allowed as the system was in place prior to the regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act, which is 1972. Also, the work cannot be allowed until after August 31st under the Natural Heritage restrictions. No coastal bank exists on this site as it is less than 10-to-1 slope. Mass DEP comments for the filing of issuance does not refer to the regulations in Title V, which I will read to you. Number 7 in Title V regulations, 310 CMR 15. No tight tank should be constructed in a velocity zone on a coastal beach, barrier beach, or dune, or a regulatory floodway unless it replaces a tank in existence on the site as of March 31st, 1995 that has been damaged or destroyed. The placement of the tank outside the velocity zone or regulatory floodway, either horizontally or vertically, is not feasible. This is textbook, this particular lot. So as I mentioned, this is a system from 1968. It existed prior to the regs, and it is damaged or has been destroyed. So the owner has every right to reestablish it. This has been approved by the Board of Health, I believe?
Yes.
So what I recommend the board this evening is the Westport Conservation should approve the tight tank placement on East Beach lot. We did receive the file, Board of Health's approvals, and natural heritage restrictions. Beach grass removed shall be removed carefully and placed over to the side of the lot. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, just so people, everybody else, the audience, we didn't have a ruling on this, as Chris stated, because of the comments from the DEP, which wouldn't allow this activity today, but since it pre-exists, it's not subject to that ruling and has been approved by the Board of Health. So does anybody at the table have any comments or questions? If no comments, anybody in the audience?
Well, I kind of do. I'm not sure if we can commingle issues, but there's a shed on this property that doesn't look like it's going to be moved for the winter as required.
This shed's been one of those that was depicted as being there prior to, and I believe Ralph Souza is, and this is a shed that's been there for quite some time. So I believe this one is grandfathered from needing to be on a movable condition.
Yeah, there are a few sheds on the, that were
considered, yes, under that.
Well, can we
can check into that.
Can we just verify that? Because, you know, we are trying to be a little bit more consistent and...
Absolutely. We should
I can verify that, but again, if you see the lobster in the picture, that shed's been there a really long time.
It's been there, Mike.
Yes, that's how I
All right.
I don't need to, but yes, I can verify.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have any questions from the audience or comments? All right, that's easy enough. Do we have a motion? Okay.
You're correct, that's contingent on natural heritage comments, but I just stated that they don't allow work from April 1st to August 31st. So I would assume that they would not have, Lenny's not proposing to put this.
We still need to wait till the
Yes,
comment, okay, yeah.
yes.
Okay,
In
so-
case we can add those to the.
All right, so motion to approve pending NHESP comments.
Lenny loves to be down there in the middle of November anyways. With stiff wind blowing.
All right, it's quiet. Do we have a second for the motion?
Wait a few weeks, maybe going anyway.
Oh, don't say that.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's unanimously owned, and you're gonna check on the shed thing, Chris?
Thanks for your patience. All right, yes, Mr. Chairman. Review building permits.
All right,
Yeah, I know. I need you in my defense.
let's see, extensions, Thomas Cardoza, SE 80, 1626, 238 East Beach Road.
Yes, this is Thomas Cardoza, Mr. Chairman, requesting a 3-year extension to their existing order. The Cardoza lot is closer towards the Fishermen's Association building, just kitty corner from that location and close to West Beach Road. This is a beach nourishment project done as needed, so I would recommend the commission consider granting them a 3-year extension. Thomas Cardoza.
And all these nourishments have a notification clause in them, if I'm correct, when we did them, if I remember correctly. They have to notify you when they're doing work. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
That's standard usually, if I may say, that's a standard boilerplate condition that usually there's 5 conditions that I normally put on all applications. That's notify the commission 48 hours, apply for a certificate of compliance. The commission's got to write the access to site during the project. Erosion control should be staked in place prior to the work. So
All right.
those are usually the standard ones that we apply to. That's why I don't mention them to you.
No, I know.
Still, I'd like to know that you guys are aware of those and do provide other
All right,
comments.
do we have any comments from the table, or do we have a motion?
I'm wondering, why didn't he get started in the last 3 years, and when is he planning to get started?
Well, what we do for East Beach Road and the surrounding beach trailer lots is allow them to have a beach nourishment permit active, because we've been battling people down there just bringing sand in as soon as they're allowed to, and it's a violation. So what we do is allow these order of conditions to be established in place if they need. So this isn't something they do every year.
Yeah.
Say we get a nice, spring storm we get in April, like we had this year, it took out, imaginative amounts of sand that some people are allowed to restore under the emergency criteria.
Yeah.
So this is just a fail-safe for those people.
Okay.
And they do cooperate with us, in other words, and just about every lot owner down there on those trail lots has an order of conditions.
So you just keep renewing?
We kind of keep
Just to-
renewing them.
Just to keep them in effect, so...
Yes,
yeah, okay.
just to try to keep them in lead, because we've been battling East Beach for 45 years. Between them doing work and not ignore mowing the salt marsh, so this just gives us a way to be cooperative and know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have a motion?
Motion to extend.
Okay, motion from Grace, do you have a second? Second. Second from Kevin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That's it, it's the end of the hearings, we have some bills.
Mr. Chairman, also what you're going to find within your packet is the re-signing of a certificate of compliance. This is for Underwood Farms. You and I had discussed this.
Right.
Apparently, nobody can find the original, even though we showed a copy of it and receipt of it. So I'm asking the board this evening just to re-sign a previously approved certificate of compliance for file number SE 80-1693.
All right. So it's a motion to sign a new copy so the person can get it on file at the registry of deeds.
Correct.
Okay.
Is this the document that you emailed us about? No. That you needed signatures?
That was something else.
Oh,
We took
I
care of
just
that.
forgot to swing by to do that.
That's all right.
so- Okay,
We got it. Thank you.
All right, so just need a motion to approve this. All right, second, somebody?
Yeah.
Kevin, all those in favor? Okay.
For the record, also, their existing order is going to be closed out at the next meeting. I
The
just
new
said
order.
this- Correct. He's coming in, like you had mentioned, Mr. Chairman, he sodded the place. So the secondary order, which will allow him to build these 4 units, will be coming in with our next meeting for
right.
hopeful signing off of that.
We have a bill for $60 for notary public license for Leon, as she needs it for her job here at the commission, so I need a motion to pay it. You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right. That was Grace and Jason, please. WB Mason, 3220 for miscellaneous office supplies. Do I have a motion to pay? A motion from Grace, second from Jason, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimously on. Minutes from 7:31, present, Burton, myself, and Kevin. Okay, so let's, so we can vote on this, and Phil was here as well, so why don't we can take a vote on this. Any changes for the 7:31 minutes? If no changes, motion to approve, please. Okay, we have a second? Okay, second from Byrne, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimous, on. Minutes, 8:28, let's see, Burton, Grace, myself, Kevin, and Jason. Oh, looks like the same crew. All right, so we need a motion of 8:28 minutes. We have a motion. Okay, second from Grace. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, that's unanimous, on. All right. Chris, what do you have for us tonight? Other than this, everything else that happened tonight?
No, I don't have any specifically. I just, through the grapevine, there is a couple ATR applications coming out from, actually the Santos Farm on Main Road has agreed to enter into an agricultural preservation restriction for that 123 acres. I think the land trust has been behind getting them to get on board with that, which is, I think, a blessing. That is an area that we've had some concern with the contamination of Winfield Stream. So maybe with that, they would be able to acquire some federal funding, and maybe there could be some mechanism for him to be able to get some money acquired to maybe put a filter strip or some method to try to maybe help alleviate those concerns that we've had. Other than that, the commission is been getting inundated with a good percentage of filings, so I appreciate your patience in those, and I thank you for being here when you are. I hope to get our next member, hopefully at our next meeting, which will help to alleviate quorums at times. I'm really concerned about Jason's sunburn. It seems he's fallen asleep somewhere on a beach.
It's a combination of sun and wind.
Didn't bother to invite us. No, other than that, Mr. Chairman, the discussion we had earlier with Laura, I really think I may have to step aside in this matter, in particular because I think I'm borderline conflict, but I just got to check into that. But
We'll check into that, because otherwise...
She's been very difficult, as you can see. You tell her to file an NOI, and then she's trying 3 different avenues to take a different approach. But
Well, you can do that, and if someone tells you it is a conflict, then...
yeah, I'd like to be here to guide you, but...
Well, they'll have to pay for an outside consultant, which I don't really want to add insult to injury.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, again, the pond has 273 million gallons of water. The 21 plants that she had in the pond did not clean the pond this year. Secondly, they were blocking the pond for the past 10 years. She neglected to state that. Her father is the one that's been blocking the pond. I've been removing the obstructions. And why the pond was so bad in 2009 is because the pond became stagnated because they had it blocked. And we had a very dry year. And the pond got very algae bloom because it wasn't able to flush itself and it was staying in a contained environment. This is a 103-acre pond. 21 plants is not going to clean a 103-acre pond. I think she really needs to take this experiment into a controlled environment. I don't think the Great Pond is where you, but she has endeavors of going elsewhere. If people want to attach these to the dock, I'm afraid she's going to start, everyone's going to want to, and if they're okay, then that's fine, but...
I mean, the plants may work, but they may need $1 million of them. Who knows? We don't know, but that's something they can file for.
I mean, honestly, I think I would much rather have you not recuse yourself on this because I think I don't see a conflict of interest. I think you're abiding by the Wetlands Protection Act, and I think it'll be helpful for us to have you to...
I'm a direct abutter. She's going to notify me in this process, so, I mean, she is my neighbor by boundary lines.
Probably get the clearance that it is or isn't.
Again, I just want the board to be aware.
I'm going to recommend that you can just email, you can call the hotline for the state, the Ethics Commission. You can ask them, because if they do, then it's better to find out now, and you can let Ms. Hadley know that they're gonna need to, on our behalf, we'll pick a professional, whoever it may be, to represent us.
Now, they've been working towards this, the Vault Bond Association. They came in with, they tried to file a loan to get federal funding, and they wanted me to sign it on behalf of the Conservation Commission. I told them, I'm not gonna sign anything like that. They were trying to get a 319 grant, and they got denied. But they were trying to put something in a farm pond that required a permit, so she's known that you need permits. That's what,
All right, we'll discuss
again, I
this,
don't
yeah.
mean to hash this.
Yeah, that's
but
okay. Let's get a
It just
motion.
seems that we run into people like this that.
All right. Well, I think
Passionate.
she's well-intentioned and passionate.
Yeah.
Just needs to file the permit and get the state to approve it.
Thank you.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Second? All right,
Thank you.
yeah.
I got a question I should
Grace and Jason.
ask during
Yeah,
the
two of us.
during the Cummings Lane thing, but you said this work should be done by a licensed professional.
Yes.
What kind of license would that be?
An applicator license for spraying the rodeo product.
Okay.
So specifically, I need that for the application of that rodeo herbicide.
Yeah.
That's a state-required permit for the application of that.
All right.
So I'm gonna specify that on the application, because you can't buy, rodeo is a commercial version of Roundup.
Yeah.
But it's a glyphosate. It actually
Yeah.
does not, it dissolves, it does not retain itself in water, and it's actually a permitted herbicide to be used in that environment.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If she puts those things off of her dock, and he puts those things off of his dock, and his neighbor puts them off of his dock,
a
doesn't they need
navigable hazard.
individual permits?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
It's a navigable
No matter
hazard.
what, it's a separate, that's
It's
why
a separate
she thinks she
entity.
can go here and go there and go there and go
Exactly,
there.
and that's what I was trying to.
If it works, there's gonna be a scientist with a formula that will
every
tell
time.
you the
I
excess
mentioned
of
I'm
life.
parched.
Yes, yes, enough. I dealt with customers all day. I got
So this is an environmental thing, and we made things more clear than.
Yeah, you gonna come some wine tonight or what?
Any plant you put into a pond that doesn't belong there could have adverse effects, whether it dies or not, so, yeah.
Hey, where's your son going?
What?
Where you going?
I'm going to the social club.
Are you coming for a drink? Hey, you coming for a drink?
I don't have a daughter, she's in college. I got no excuse.
Oh, boy. Hey,
I'm going.
fresh fish,
Big night.
fresh fish.
Yeah, I gotta drive home in a bar though. I can make sure I have more than one eye.
No, that's fine. You know what, you know what the police always say, if you see double, you just cover one eye, and then you don't have to see double anymore.
What do I got?
I'll do like all the social club lights, they know the schedule in the police department, they leave right at that time. They all leave at 3 o'clock, that's when the.
11 o'clock shift change, you gotta go. So you have this layout? You see that?
Yeah, I'll see that.
Wait, you driving the truck today, huh?
Oh, where's the files? Oh, my God. I thought there would be more than that.
Worse than I am.
Thank you.
Good night, Melanie.
See how some people are stubborn down and you like hitting your head against the wall?
Yeah, Leon, you're not going, are you? Huh? You're not going.
No. You gonna go? Oh.